Have you ever been curious about the mind of a creator? The journey of a writer? Well, you're in the right place. Today, in our third installment of Write Me Poetry Publishing's interview with George Norman Lippert, we dive deep into the personal stories of both George and Jessica on either side of the screen. Please listen in and enjoy.
I remember in college when I was taking animation courses, I would get a lot of, I remember that regularly people would say, they would express incredulity that I was able to create what I created. And they would say something like, I hate you, or you must just work like 24 hours a day, all day long. I'm like, I work hard, but I don't think I'd work, like they didn't want to acknowledge, this is going to sound super arrogant.
That's okay.
I'm going to say it anyway. They didn't want to acknowledge that I might actually just be especially good at this.
Right.
They had to attribute it to you spend an unhealthy amount of time on it, for example. Like, I don't really think so, not any more than you guys did. So yeah, I've felt that a little bit. And I remember feeling like you could just say it looks really great and I'd be happy with that.
Right. Yeah. Like that's great. I wonder if you said if you become comfortable with yourself, that's when you're able to reach out to other people and accept their exceptional.
Absolutely. Yes.
It sounds almost like that's been a little of your journey. Like you were talking earlier about how you felt you were more arrogant and now like you're more really open to people.
Definitely. I represent, I think, a lot of creatives in the sense that I've always said this. I exist in the extremes of either being exhibiting intense arrogance, boundless, intense arrogance and confidence, and crippling insecurity, and very little in between. And I think the crippling insecurity, I think it has gone away bit by bit by bit. It's eroded, and I've deliberately tried to erode it to the point where now I don't feel like I have to constantly trying to prove to everybody around me that I'm awesome. Now I can say, I want to know how you're awesome.
That's awesome. That's actually what I was going to say.
Because everybody has cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, so I'm going to show you a thing that I do. This is sign language for P, right?
Okay.
And
yeah.
This is J. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had two thoughts, one about James and one about pride. And I have these in my lap right now. So I won't forget without interrupting my active listening. So this reminds me of how growing up, I learned that pride is a bad thing, but I equated that with not being allowed to be proud of myself for like anything.
That's an easy
anything. Right. It's like when they said prideful, they mean like arrogant and self-centered and, all those kinds of things. And so I went with, okay, yes, I did that amazing thing, but now I need to tone it down because I don't need to look like I'm showing off. I don't need to, and being able to slowly come to a balance of, okay, I don't have to, throw this in someone's face as in I can do this and you can't, but I can still say, hey, look what I can do.
Yeah.
What do you think of it? Can I, have you ever done something like this? Is this something we could, talk about? What do you like to do? And I think that getting to that place is just so huge to be able to get to that. I'm confident. Yes. I'm confident, and that's good.
I'm amazed and astonished that you were able to come to that place. I mean, it took me many, many, many years to get to that point. I started out overly humble, like I think you're describing. And I realized after many, many years that I realized two things. Authenticity is my core value. That's the most important thing to me, to be authentic to myself and to be authentic, to present myself authentically to the world. And that when people say, George, what you made is amazing. And I say, oh, that's nothing. That's not authentic.
Oh, wow.
That's not
so
true.
That's a good point.
And so I was like, I have to stop saying, oh, no, it's no big deal. It's just a little something. Oh, thank you. But no, I had to be like, yeah, I'm really happy with it too. I'm really proud of that. I worked hard at that. And those are true. Yes. I can say that authentically without being an arrogant, idiot.
Right. I love that. I don't think that I would have. I actually, so last year you were actively listening just then, and you were very still. I thought your internet had gone out again.
Yeah.
So, but
I'll keep moving around.
Oh no! Well, there you go. Good, perfect.
Like
Now,
the Street Fighter,
one of those...
the Street Fighter characters.
Exactly. I was just thinking, those video game characters that are just constantly like this,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
okay,
Yep. They never stand perfectly still.
Exactly. That's too funny. So, oh, phooey, what was I saying?
We were talking about that it's inauthentic to say it's nothing when you know you worked really hard at it anyway.
Yes. Okay. So I divorced in 2017, and I got to the point, like, I was kind of picking myself up. But I didn't realize that I was codependent. I didn't know what that really meant. And so once I realized, oh, I feel like a nothing person without this relationship that I had. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I dislike, because I've dismissed it for so long. And it's been unimportant to me because I needed to take care of this person or this situation. And so being able to say, okay, like my partner now, she asked me several months after my divorce, I was going to go get something to eat. And I was just on the phone with her, and she said, well, what do you want to eat? I was like, I had no idea.
Wow.
I have no idea. What do you have a taste for? I just know I need to eat. Wow. I had no clue. No clue. And so I knew that I needed to figure this out. And actually part of the sphere concept that I wrote about, it's entwined in that. It started about that year, actually, when I started writing that, because the concept of we are connected to each other, but we're also on our own journey was very important. And
both
that's kind of what this, yes, that's kind of what the sphere is about, being on that journey, but also being aware of other people. And so anyway, I was like, I have a fly in here, so if you see a fly, just don't worry about it. But
I haven't seen it so far. If it lands
on the lens, I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks. Awesome. Yeah, it really would. So anyway, I decided to go to counseling. It came through my work. They were like, you get 8 weeks free. I'm like, okay, let's do it, And so the first person I went to was fabulous. He was so upbeat and so just himself. You could tell he was just himself. And I remember coming in, and I shared with him that I had written some poetry, or I had written something. And he said, girl, tell me about it, read it to me, or whatever. Or he read it sometimes, and he was just so pumped about it. And it just kind of turned my thinking inward, but in a good way. And I thought, I might actually have more to contribute to the world than this exhausting pouring out of myself from the depths that, I'm just thirsting for, relief from. And so I thought, okay, maybe there's something I can do to not only give like I naturally wanted to do, but also to give to me and to make me better, make me a better person, but also make me better. And so during those 8 weeks, I really started to write more and think more. And I had some singing sessions with him, like, just getting my creativity out there. And that's what he told me. Yeah. He was like, you've got to get it out there. And I remember writing a line one time, basically, go to the place where what you create will never see the light of day if you don't go.
Think about
go to that place. Go to the place where what you create will never see the light of day if you don't go.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So wade in, feel the feelings.
Yes.
Face the challenges, the difficulties, the ugliness.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Go to that place. And what's funny? I had actually not thought about it as much as the way you just described it. I thought about it more as like a physical place, but where you can kind of calm yourself and get into that kind of meditative place. But thinking of a place as in a place inside yourself, getting past those dark tunnels, that
was the fabulous. First thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that they're both true. I think it's one of those multifaceted truths. there's probably many, many more facets of it that we're not even considering.
Yes. That's something that I've really noticed, and I'll tell you about that offline because it's totally off topic from today's interview. But
It's okay. People might be interested in
it. Well, I had a cousin who he had been in the military. He was a beautifully poetic heart, and
Wow.
he was a medic. And one of the things he did was he took his, I think it was a ukulele or the other one, but anyway, mandolin maybe. Anyway, one of those. Yeah, one of those. But he would play it for the other soldiers, and he would sing to them, and just like that was just who he was. And so when he died, I had actually just started or just finished, I think, a second 8-week session of counseling with a woman who was one of those who would tell you what you needed to know and make you do what you needed to do. And I loved her for it. And she told me one day, she said, I had been doing editing projects and things like that. And she said, "That's great. Now, when is your book going to be published?" I was like, yes, ma'am. And so, I mean, she actually helped keep me accountable to the deadlines that I set for myself. I wanted to have it chapter 1 completed by here, or section 2 completed by here, and she really got me rolling with that. And so when I published The Sphere, I wrote a set of acknowledgments, and the last person I acknowledged was my cousin. His name's Jared. And I wrote to him and I just said, I'm publishing this a year to the month after you entered the halls of Valhalla. And I just quoted a text that he sent me, basically saying that if you and I could, for just one moment of time each day, stop and meditate, pray, think on love, think on goodness, think of the other person. If we set a time to do that every day, we would know that we were thought of at that moment, and we would be thinking of that other person. And the very last word he said to me in text, which is the very last word he said to me, was love.
Oh, wow.
And there was it was the word by itself in a text. There was no period, no question mark. It was just the word. And so I always thought of it as he was telling me a summary basically of what he had just said. He was saying, love, this is kind of what love is to him. I showed that acknowledgement to a friend at work, and she immediately said, "That's an instruction."
Oh, wow. It's an imperative.
Yes.
Love.
And
go love.
Right. Exactly. And I actually told his mother recently about the acknowledgements. I didn't know if she had read it because I knew it would be really sensitive, but I did tell her about it. And I told her that the last word he had texted me was love. And she said, "Oh yeah, he had just texted his dad not long before telling him to go love people."
Wow. So
and I was just like, yes, exactly. And that just blew me away. I mean, it gives me chills even now.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like what you were saying, as far as learning other people's stories. That lady at work, I had gone to her, I was kind of passing by her, asking her a question, but we managed to stop, and I was able to stop myself from my rush and listen to, she actually had a book she was thinking about writing. And so we talked about that for a while. And, I offered if she needed an editor, let me know, that kind of thing. But it was just fun to hear and know that kind of like Petra, I was like choosing at this moment to make this decision. Even if I had other things that were on my mind, I was thinking,
so important. This
is important, right?
Yeah.
People are so important. And so, yeah, just for her to say love, that's an imperative. That was an instruction. Yeah. I actually wrote that down, and I said, I will, it was like a shop order for a part I had in my hand. I just wrote it on there just to remember when I got back to my desk, to make that note. But
that's one of those things. Yeah. And it's one of those things. I know this is what we intended to talk about, but I think it's important. That is easy, so easy that we forget about it, because it's easy, but it's not simple. It means making a deliberate choice so many times during the day when, again, our culture and our schedule and our priorities, we can so easily fall into lockstep with that and not make that deliberate counterintuitive choice to stop, to invest, to listen to somebody, to show them that we care and to offer them something. And even just to say, you matter, and I'm stopping to show you because I'm listening to you. I'm actually listening.
Wow.
And I'm going to remember this, and we're going to talk about this again later. And I'm going to, surprising somebody by saying, following up on a conversation you had before. Yeah. So, this is something that I'm just learning to do, but I'm seeing the benefits of it. And it's wonderful.
I think
beautiful.
That it's almost an extension to me of the idea of hearing a character almost speak to you and tell you what to write about them. If you can do that and you can translate that to real life, like let people be the characters, let that person that you're walking past be that character. You never know what idea you might get from them. You never know how you might impact them as well. And
I think you're right. That's really interesting. I think that sorry, my brain's working faster than my mouth. I think bad fiction may be the fiction where the author treats the characters like pawns on a chessboard. You can always sense the author's moving them around to accomplish his own aims. Good fiction is where the author is just standing back and letting the characters be. And therefore the characters surprise the author sometimes. In the same way, we can treat other human beings like we totally get them. We understand exactly what they're like. We know what they're going to say. So we're treating them like a bad fiction writer treats his characters. When we say instead, I'm willing to be surprised by something that you say or do. I'm willing to acknowledge that I don't know you as well as I think you are, and you're not a pawn for me to use for my own aims.
That's
good.
I love that. Yeah, it is. We should write that down. We should
totally
write that down.
Permanently in the record.
Yes, it absolutely is. Oh wow, that's awesome. I actually had an epiphany last night. I have a character that funny enough, she first came to me as Colleen, and I wrote the original story. I wrote a story that I've showed you about Bobby, and Bobby mentions Colleen, and then as I wrote the second version from her perspective, she immediately told me, yes, that is my name, but I go by Connie. And I was like, yes, ma'am. She told me straight off, I go by Connie. And it was very strong in my mind. And so Bobby and Connie had talked about how they were, they both had hard lives at home.
Yeah.
And Bobby's goes into a little bit of detail, but not much. Connie, we don't know anything at all. And so I was curious, of course, about what it was. I felt like it was something like sexual harassment or something like that. And I thought maybe like a father figure. I couldn't figure out, who or what was going on. But last night I was vacuuming, because that's what you do when you get ideas. And I was vacuuming, and I remember thinking that she had an almost British sounding accent. I don't know enough about accents to know where one is from usually. Hence the Merlinus guesses earlier. But I remember thinking like, and then last night it was like, okay, but how is a British sounding young Black woman in a neighborhood that's obviously somewhere in America, like how did that come to be? And so, and it can happen in myriad ways, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It felt important. And so as I was thinking through it, I remembered the first time I recorded Bobby, I did like a raw audio recording of it. And the first line that I read is actually a line that's not attributed to either character. It's just there, kind of like a little prologue. And when I read it on the recording, it kind of had a lilting Britishy accent. Well, Bobby's dialogue is completely, or monologue, I guess, is completely American sounding-ish, right?
Yeah.
But then when Connie came back around, she said, Bobby, you okay, man? And so I realized that the same person who said, Bobby, are you okay, also said whatever was in the beginning of the story. I thought Bobby had said it. Apparently Connie had said it. And I guess I'll find out later why.
Yeah.
But so last night I thought, okay, she is dark skinned. She has some kind of accent I'm not sure of. And then all of a sudden, what came to my mind as a not as cultured as I want to be person was Jamaican.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. And it felt almost right. But what I realized in the next like few minutes was she was a victim of sex trafficking. And she was moved from the West Indies up to, I still don't know where in the US, but somewhere. And she was named Colleen. I looked up the name Colleen as a Jamaican name. It means girl. It just means girl.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, so somebody got her from West Indies and just called her girl.
Wow.
And it's actually Irish in origin. And so I thought the person that got her might have had some kind of Irish, but I haven't, gone in depth in that, but that's just what came to mind. Right. So she, so she came over when she was 9. And in the story with Bobby, she's 11. So she's been there 2 years.
Wow.
And it's just, so all that to say, it's just fascinating to me to have almost the meditative mind state to hear not just the people around you, but the ones who are talking to you from, whether it's the grave or the multiverse or wherever they are, just to be able to hear that and write it down.
There's no question in my mind. My experience with writing, very similar to what you just described, insists that at least some fiction writing is not just an act of pure intellectual invention. It's coming from somewhere, and we may not know on this side of the of our existence. But I toyed with the idea as a sort of Twilight Zone-y concept many years ago. In fact, I wrote a piece of Stephen King fan fiction based on this idea that all stories are true. It's just a matter of across dimensions. So our fiction is another dimension's reality. It's inevitable if there is it is a multiverse.
Okay, I need to read that. But just saying, it's
one of my favorite things I've ever written. But now I've had too many strange experiences like what you just described to believe that that's entirely untrue. There's got to be some cosmic, mystical, spiritual something going on there. I always have said the stories want to be told, and occasionally they prove it.
Let's hear that one more time.
I always have said the stories want to be told, and occasionally they prove it.